سر بام آمدی چادت لایی دیگر نمیاندم علم
Afghanistan, country in many ways forgotten by all but those who live there. For thousands of years, it's been ripped apart by invasions, wars, religious strife, and poverty. For many Americans, the first real awareness of Afghanistan came in 1979, when the Soviet Union invaded. Less than a year later, President Jimmy Carter called for a boycott of the 1980 Olympics to be held in Moscow. In a few years, Afghanistan had faded away from the public's mind. September 11, 2001 turned the world's attention to Afghanistan. It was in Afghanistan where a little-known but powerful enemy of America was recruiting and training a new breed of soldier to fight a new kind of war. Just a month after the September 11th attacks, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan. Weeks of devastating bombings followed, and the search was on for Osama bin Laden. Soon, the Taliban was on the run from all major Afghan cities. The Afghan people continue to suffer. More than 4 years later, the Taliban's brutal regime is over, but the poverty and daily struggle remains.
Tell me where we're at.
This is the new school being built for Kaluta.
Thousands of U.S. soldiers remain on guard in Afghanistan. Much of their help eases the suffering of the Afghan people. Over 1,000 of those soldiers are from Texas, members of the National Guard. Tonight, a closer look at life in Afghanistan from both its people and the Texans working to maintain the peace.
From Austin to Afghanistan, Tour of Duty. This is a Fox 7 News special presentation.
Good evening. I'm Arzo Dos with Fox 7 News. Photographer Tim Holcomb and I spent a week in Afghanistan traveling with the Guard, visiting with them and the people of Afghanistan. It was a return home for me. I lived in Kabul until my family fled following the Soviet invasion. I was 7 when we left. To return to see family and friends after all this time was really the assignment of a lifetime. Tonight, a tour of duty with the men and women of the Texas National Guard and the people of Afghanistan. It's been more than 4 years since the first Texas National Guard troops stepped foot in Afghanistan. Hundreds of National Guard soldiers are now part of U.S. forces in the country. They're hunting for lingering Taliban.
We have really been working hard and have rounded up a lot of them, but there's still some out there.
They're rebuilding and securing the war-torn country, and they're trying in any way possible to help the Afghan people. On this day, the mission is in a small village in the Ghazni province. There, a big ceremony, a prayer,
the time of the Taliban has passed,
and some encouraging words from the Guard. Here in Ghazni, south of Kabul, winter's just getting started. The people here say it's going to be a harsh one. That's why they want the soldiers' help, which nowadays seems to be there by the loads. Blankets and food. This woman says she has no brother, no husband, nobody to help her. When asked if this helps any, she says sure, the soldiers always help. In other parts of the country, the Guard is just as visible.
We'll be traveling in 4 vehicles.
This unit is headed to Kapisa, a village in eastern Afghanistan.
We should come into an ambush. All of our vehicles are up armored.
Though they anticipate the worst, they're looking forward to this mission.
I'll tell you, this is some of the best stuff we do. Not much. And so we're trying to give them hope for the future.
For the Guard,
encountered a safe house where 5...
This mission is more than just helping the Afghan people.
We're the cameras of Bagram, so we're the eyes for Bagram.
From towers overlooking Bagram Airfield, the largest base in the country,
We're looking at 5 to 10 guys.
to forces on the ground. These reservists are also helping take care of some 18,000 troops around the country.
If something bad happens, we go out and reinforce.
2005 was a deadly year for troops.
It's a vicious war.
Soldiers say remaining insurgents are becoming more aggressive.
Soldiers are still dying.
Sergeant William Gardner says Afghanistan is turning into Iraq. Suicide bombings and roadside attacks are now happening daily.
They're watching the TVs and getting their tricks of the trade from the Iraqis and using them on us over here.
They say they know that's part of this war.
We're 2 minutes out. Come on, Jim.
The price of freedom. Even knowing that, most are adamant that they need to be kept here.
I think if we pull out, the Taliban's just going to come right back, and it'll just be bad.
For more than 2,000 years, Afghanistan has been a country in turmoil, from Alexander the Great to most recently the Taliban. Through it all, the Afghan people have fought for their land and their freedom. This is freedom for many of the Afghans. Being outside, feeling the fresh air, flying kites, a favorite pastime here. Taliban بود اینجا؟ نمی‌مانده؟
نه.
This little boy says when the Taliban were here, they banished kites and many other things all around the country. It's been just in the past few years that the Afghans have felt this new sense of freedom.
No, ma'amunallah.
This father says when the Taliban ruled, nothing was allowed. His kids would just go to school and come back home. He says no doubt the Afghans are glad the streets are packed again. Stores are open. But Kabul, the city of about 4 million, is far from being rebuilt. It has electricity for only a few hours a day. The majority of the Afghans are poor, living in single-room mud brick houses. Farouk Safi has been through it all here. He says life is much calmer now. He remembers the days when there was a lot of fighting, a lot of chaos.
The marketplace here is always busy, always has been busy. During the Taliban time, it was actually closed down, so all this activity right now was totally gone. It's just been in the past year or so that things have been up and going again.
And life has been brought back. But there is still a lot of violence all around Afghanistan. This man says it was in the middle of the night. He was sleeping when rockets came and hit his roof. His house collapsed. He says it's a miracle he's alive.
We're about 30, 40 meters from where the blast occurred, and we've got...
The attack also blew out the International School of Kabul's windows.
There were evidently 3 rockets fired, and typically they're just fired at random from over the mountain, and they land where they land.
This time, they landed right next to the school.
It's pretty devastating. So,
5th grade teacher Bethany Eli says she's struggling coming up with a way to explain what happened to her students.
I think that it's going to be hard when the kids come back, even after we get everything repaired, just that weird feeling of are people attacking us?
Across war-torn Afghanistan, there is still a strong Taliban presence.
The enemy comes as thieves in the night, burning schools, burning clinics, scaring people.
Daily now, Texas National Guard soldiers visit with the locals.
They try to still scare the people. They still try to intimidate these people into going into the old ways.
Their priority is building trusting relationships among each village, each community. After all, it's been decades of violence that's divided the country. That's left countless families homeless, hundreds of kids without their parents. This orphanage in Kabul is overcrowded. This boy here says his father died at the hands of the Taliban. His mother is now barely making it. When we asked him how he was dealing with it, he had no answer. He just stared blankly. 20 years after escaping, it's hard to see home. It's hard to see Kabul, where I grew up, still in turmoil.
10 سال بعد میگین افغانستان چی رقمی باشه؟
اگر زنده بودیم 10 سال بعد بسیار خوبش میشه ان شاء الله بسیار مقبول میشه بسیار خوبش میشه.
Still, those like Farouk say in 10 years they hope the country is rebuilt and beautiful again. For now, it's these moments. Kites dancing in the sky. Kids playing outside. This is progress. It's a milestone for any Afghan who has survived the Taliban. Texas National Guard soldiers not only have to be on the lookout for the enemy, they have to also be aware of their own behavior and how the people there perceive them. Understanding the Afghan culture and knowing how to communicate is a battle in itself.
Say Chitoristi?
When they're not on the front lines, they're out in the smaller villages all around Afghanistan.
What is that? I said he's crazy.
Talking to the Afghans.
Y'all learning something in school?
Building trust.
What time did you go to school? 1 o'clock? Salam.
Many have picked up the language, Dari. Even a lot of the customs.
Everywhere we go, and even the older people, they always tell us, thank you.
For these Texas National Guard soldiers, getting to know the people is part of this mission. Regularly now, they hop in a Chinook and head to some of the smaller communities. While we toured Afghanistan, we traveled in the Chinook, overlooking huts across the country and flying above the clouds. This bird's eye view was breathtaking. It's easy to see that so far from home for some soldiers, this is peace.
It's from your daughter, your son, and your...
Thank you. For others, like this father, it's letters from home that help him cope with war.
Dear Dad.
He says anytime he reads one, all he thinks,
That I want to go home, that I want to be home with him.
341 Specialist White speaking in Epic, sir, ma'am.
Specialist Ivana White is counting the days until she can go home, too.
I have something to look forward to when I go home. I mean, this is not forever.
She says the hardest part of this mission has been leaving her 2-year-old, Lauren Angel. The only way she's managed, she says, is through a strong support system.
The troops here in my family is home away from home.
And while this is home temporary, it is very small.
I have a bed. Not everybody has a bed. I got a
Huts
bed.
like this are where these soldiers live, where they have some comfort. But they say it's the streets of Kabul that keeps haunting them. It's the people, for the most part, that have made this mission bearable.
Most of the people here are happy that we're here, but there is they say it's about 1% of the population that are the ones that don't want us here.
It's that 1% these soldiers are constantly working on.
Peacekeeper talk, Eagle 9 Bravo, over.
They hope with their presence and compassion here, they can change attitudes formed decades ago.
Coming up, the women of Afghanistan, long hidden from the world. What is life like for them? Tour of Duty continues in a moment.
While life has been hard on the Afghan people, it's been especially tough for the women. Just 3 decades ago, women went to schools, drove cars, and didn't have to cover up. But after the Taliban took over, women were forced into the shadows of society, forced to hide their faces and opinions from men. This is Kabul, Afghanistan, after the Taliban. The one group that was shunned from society is back. The women of Afghanistan are out. They're shopping, going to school. They're now even speaking in public as elected leaders of their communities. Sure, many still cover up. Around town, women are often seen wearing their burqas, traditional clothing that was required under Taliban rule.
We hadn't the right to go outside of their house.
That was 5 years ago.
We were like prisoners.
Fatima Mushtaq says she felt suffocated in her own country, a prisoner within the walls of her own home.
We hadn't the right to go to the bazaar, buy something for our children, for ourselves too.
Even going to school was forbidden, forcing many like Fatima to start underground schools.
I had about 400 students.
Her students were mainly girls, many, she says, terrified for wanting to learn.
Now the situation is better for, especially for the women. Now the women are doctors, teachers, computer working, translators, soldiers, policewomen. Lots of jobs that they want, they can have it.
They're now even part of the local government. Fatima was one of several women who was recently elected into office. She's the new Minister of Education. It's a position that hasn't gone unnoticed. She's constantly threatened. It's gotten so bad that she now has a bodyguard.
Now I will not afraid, never.
But there are thousands of other women that are. We tried to stop a few on the streets of Kabul, but they refused to even acknowledge us. In the past few years, beauty shops have started popping up all around the city here. We tried to go inside a few and talk to some of the women. They wouldn't talk to us. They said they were just too afraid of their husbands. And what could happen to them if they speak out, if they show their face? It's a harsh reality. 20 years after my family fled Afghanistan, I didn't expect the women in Kabul to be so timid, so afraid. Even though I was covered up, most of the men in Kabul questioned what I wore. It was actually the smaller villages where I felt most welcome. There, even though the girls were constantly shooed away, they kept coming back to talk to us. They say they don't have much, but they have big dreams. This girl says she wants to be a doctor. Her village elders, so proud, stand behind her. They say she's their future. Back in Kabul, where the fear is greater, women still hide in plain sight, hoping to one day walk without a burqa, to be totally free. No hesitations, no stinging fear, just free.
Next, a soldier's diary from Afghanistan. Our Fox 7 special presentation continues right after this.
On our trip to Afghanistan, we also brought a small video camera and gave it to a sergeant from here in Austin. We wanted to give him the opportunity to tell us what life is like in a war zone and how he's coping so far away from home. Here now is the story of one soldier, told in his own words.
I wanted to talk about like one of the toughest things being over here, and that's basically missing your family. Missing home.
This is one of the better parts of the job. We go out and try to develop good relations with all the local nationals and all the Afghans. Let them know we're here to help, and anything they need, we can get it for them. We will. We're up at the foothills of some of the Hindu Kush mountains. I don't know if you can hear me. All the kids screaming. They're great. They I love the Americans here. We checked out like a water well, a canal for them for drinking water. And of course we passed out some candy and some cans to the kids. Of course they always want more. We don't have enough. Wish we had more. Here's a little girl, and she's got a baby on her back. You see all these kids, but you never see any adults around. Here's a bunch of the kids with this. They're all smiling, you know, just interested, curious in what we're doing. Четверости. Just asking them if they're okay. They're good. Got a little man with a Purdue sweater on here. And I was going to record some of the guys I was here with. To make it a little bit more fun. Here's Roy Santos. Eli Coleman. Michigan. And we got Percy Engineer. And Cubby Ski. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. I guess if I give a message to anyone, you know, the soldiers and their wives and families, I would say keep taking care of each other. You know, this is a hard time. It's a tough time for everybody. So take care of each other.
A final look back when Tour of Duty continues.
This journey to Afghanistan has a lot of meaning for me. Growing up there, it's always been a dream to go back. My family fled the country when I was very young, so this trip was like stepping back in time.
20 years. Here we go.
It's overwhelming stepping off the plane in Kabul. Childhood memories keep flashing through my mind. I keep thinking about my family, our house, the city. My family escaped Afghanistan 20 years ago after the Soviet invasion. I remember my mother woke me up one night. She said, "Get up, let's go." The next thing I knew, we were headed towards the Hindu Kush Mountains with several other families. We traveled by foot and on donkeys, sleeping during the day so we wouldn't be caught, traveling at night. Our journey lasted several days. We had guides. They took us all the way to Pakistan and safety, away from the Russian army that had taken over Kabul, making life for us and others unbearable. Being back so many years later, it's hard to see Afghanistan. The streets are dirty and cluttered. It doesn't feel like home the way I remembered it as a 7-year-old girl. I actually feel like an outsider looking in.
Since the U.S. invasion here in Afghanistan,
For my photographer, Tim Holcomb, and I, this was a journey of a lifetime.
10,000 troops here.
We were taken all around the country. You could say it was both the longest and shortest week of our lives. One of the days, we managed to find my family, still living in the neighborhood where I grew up. These are my cousins, some who helped raise me. I can't describe what it was like to see them again.
This is our house.
We went to my house, the place where I learned to crawl, walk, talk, where I lost my first tooth. This house was built by my grandfather. I remember it was always filled with family and laughter.
I remember always going up to this window and sitting.
Walking through the house, emotions came flooding back. It's hard to see what my family had to leave behind.
I remember being out there where that trampoline is and flying a kite with my brother. And it was winter, so it was so cold, and I remember my fingers would cut and it would hurt, but we were having so much fun.
Being back as an adult. At times I almost feel guilty for having so much, for being able to wake up every day and live out my dreams. It was a dream to come back here. to see how things really are firsthand. To close a door on a piece of my past that was taken away in the middle of the night 20 years ago. I'm Arzo Dost. All of us at Fox 7 would like to thank the Texas National Guard for helping us make this trip possible. We wish them the best on their tour of duty. Good night.